Dungeons and Dragons, and the never-ending drama surrounding it.
Welcome to Mini Scandals, the series where we roll an investigation check on the scandals and drama that grip the world's hobbies, niches and interests.
Nice.
Dungeons and Dungeons and Dungeons and Dragons, also known as D&D, and D is the legendary tabletop role-playing game that has captured the hearts, minds and virginities of its obsessive player base.
He
First
got
released
that right.
in the mid-70s, it has slowly crept its way from the basements of men still living with their parents well into their 30s to the basis of the highest earning Twitch channel.
However, this meter
Has it actually made it farther than the basements of 30-year-old men? I don't think so, honestly.
meteoric rise wasn't without its share of adversity, and our favourite murder hobo simulator has been blamed for inciting everything from prison escapes to Satanism to more than a few deaths. I'm gonna need everyone to roll initiative
That's
because
true.
it's time for the mini scandals of Dungeons and Dragons.
Part 1.
Parents looking for an easy solution to their troubled child's problems that doesn't involve taking any responsibility themselves
He
have
got
often
that
blamed
right.
the new and unknown. Whether it's violent video games, that dang rock and roll music, or Colosseum gladiator fights. In the mid-70s, Dungeons and Dragons rolled its way onto the dorm room tables usually reserved for beer pong and premarital sex, and parents were immediately concerned. By D&D, I mean,
Yeah,
that
obviously.
other stuff was fine. The first victim
Hey, it was a different time, and that kind of encompasses it greatly how much of a different time it was. Get someone pregnant? No problem. Here's not an abortion. Here's responsibility for the rest of your life. Yeah, D&D was way more evil than that, obviously, back in the day. Nice.
of Dungeons and Dragons was a teenager named James Egbert III. James was a
The
child
third.
prodigy who enrolled at university at just 16 years old. Yet despite this impressive feat, was still under immense pressure from his parents to succeed academically.
This, coupled with epilepsy, a drug addiction, and the possibility he was coming to terms with his homosexuality in an environment that was hardly accepting, led him to attempt suicide in the steam tunnels below his university.
Oh,
When
wow.
this failed, he went into hiding, and it was
What the hell is a steam tunnel under the university? Does every university have a steam tunnel under it? Man, that's some creepy stuff.
during this time that PI William Dare was hired to try and find him. Through rumours dredged up from university students, as well as Dare's unfamiliarity with D&D, one of his early theories was that Egbert had taken to playing Dungeons and Dragons in the steam vents below the university and somehow got lost. Interestingly, it appears that students actually did carry out fantasy roleplay in the steam vents, but of course
Oh.
that isn't D&D, it's LARPing.
Lightning bolt!
Yet the simple-minded folks of the 1970s were quick to lump anything fantastical together, in the same way that your mum still calls every console a Nintendo.
Dare's Steam Vents and Dragons hypothesis
My mom doesn't even know what a console is, okay? She doesn't know how they're called in general because we're not American, okay? Yeah.
was quickly made the focal point of the case by the media, and the idea of America's youth being so absorbed by role-playing games that they lose touch with reality was ingrained in the nation's collective consciousness.
This unfounded fear was even coalesced into a work of fiction imaginatively titled Mazes and Monsters, about an obsessive RPG player
Nice.
having a psychotic breakdown and believing he's now his character.
This novel was even adapted into a made-for-TV movie of the same name, featuring a 26-year-old Tom Hanks in his first leading film role.
Oh, wow.
Weirdly enough.
I have spells. I'm going to fly.
You don't have enough points. I am the maze controller.
Ironically, the pearl-clutching suburbanite mothers of America were unable to distinguish between fantasy and reality, and many interpreted the events in the book
Are women still... you're telling me women now are capable of distinguishing between reality and fantasy? I don't think this man has ever been on Twitter. I don't think that has... Someone should show him Twitter and then let's see what he thinks about that.
as realistic depictions of how Dungeons and Dragons is played and what it might lead to.
I have spells.
Tragically, Egbert's story doesn't have a happy ending, worsened by the media ignoring a discussion around the real but apparently boring story of mental health issues and substance abuse.
That does
in favour
sound
of
boring,
vilifying
yes, though.
One of the few things that likely gave this teenager a
That
temporary
does
escape from
sound
his
more
troubles.
fun, yes.
Okay, that last one got a bit heavy, so let's take a quick breather and take a look at something a bit less depressing. The American justice system.
Nice.
Oh, wait.
Dungeons and Dragons may as well have been made for prisoners. You're stuck in a room for most of the day with nothing to do but create elaborate worlds, scenarios, and
That's
characters.
true.
You've got plenty of inspiration to draw from, and you're desperate to imagine you're literally anywhere else.
Tabletop RPGs are apparently quite
I don't know. Those Swedish prisons look better than the average American's living conditions. I mean, you can choose to be a average American and live in dirt, or you can choose to go in Sweden and commit a felony and live in luxury. That's not really a choice, honestly, even at this point.
common in the Slammer and serve much the same purpose as they do on the outside. Bringing together friends to share in a common story and overcoming adversity using teamwork and not trying to pickpocket my fucking character every chance they get, Steve. Of course, innocent fun that involves using knives on goblins and not other inmates can seem
Prostitutes, he
peculiar
means,
for
yeah.
the uninitiated. And so overzealous prison wardens trying to justify their title have banned RPG games and confiscated any gaming paraphernalia, even confusing game maps with escape plans. The most famous example of this was a 2004 lawsuit against the Walpen Correctional Institution by prisoner Kevin T. Singer, who's away for a wee while after rolling a net 20 while using a sledgehammer on his sister's boyfriend. The prison was primarily
Nice.
concerned with the gang-like activity they perceived to be present within D&D, as the routine meeting of a group of players with a dungeon master supposedly mimicked the organization and hierarchy of actual gangs. Of course, the prison had no
That's probably actually very true and on point in prison if you think about it technically. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much the same, I think, in prison. Wow.
evidence of D&D leading to any actual gang activity in their prison or at any other prison or, well, anywhere at all, ever, really. As anyone who spent their weekends in high school playing video games instead of getting drunk and kissing girls on the mouth hole will tell you, gaming was likely keeping these prisoners out of trouble, if anything. After all, there's hardly time to spend getting into real fights if the precious few hours you have out of your cell each day are spent bartering with the town blacksmith to get a discount on a new warhammer. Still, the appeals court was surprisingly not interested in giving inmates the tools to help rehabilitate themselves, instead of just perpetually
Hey, prison is a business, and if they rehabilitate themselves, they're kind of like creating losses in an indirect way. So, you know, that should not be allowed,
punishing
obviously.
them and guaranteeing an endless supply of repeat offenders. And the D&D ban was upheld by the appeals court in 2010. Even in prisons
Nice.
where D&D isn't banned, blanket bans on gambling often leave dice at a scarcity. But creative inmates aren't ones to lie down when the man tells them they can't fling fireballs with the boys.
Dice have been made from everything, from
Toilet
toilet paper
paper,
to the
that's
stickers
toilet
from
paper.
shampoo bottles. And gamers in the gulag often have dice templates sent in from their people on the outside, so that they can easily remake them if a set is taken or destroyed by guards.
Wow.
Even more creative inmates have used everything from spinners to pulling numbers from a cup to using playing cards, which aren't banned for some reason. And my personal favourite, a pair of styrofoam cups that the DM spins until you tell them to stop. Don't ever take for granted the fact that you can just go, "Hey Siri, you dribbling dick of a woman, you fucking dumb bitch, you stupid broad. Could you please roll a d20 for me?"
20.
Wow.
Not many people know this, but the medieval fantasy setting of Dungeons and Dragons was actually based on the medieval fantasy setting that people were living in the 1980s. And what medieval society
Unbelievable.
would be complete without the constant fear of demonic influence brainwashing the youth? Not to be confused with the religious influence brainwashing the adult.
I think that's what most people know about D&D. That it was the root cause of every demonic cult in the history of ever amongst children. I think that's pretty popular way of knowing what D&D is.
But they'd take the pieces of the game, they would throw them in the incinerator or the fireplace, and screams would come out because there seemed to be some kind of spiritual forces inhabiting those pieces, and children would drop out of life. They didn't want to study anymore.
Man, how the world has changed, you know? At that time, that was considered demonic and bad. Now, show me a pop star that doesn't openly, actually, do legitimately satanistic things in the bad sense, and, not in the meme sense. Yeah, kind of strange how life turns.
On June 9th, 1982, 16-year-old D&D player Irving Pulling committed suicide. His story sadly echoes that of Egbert's, an intelligent yet disturbed youth whose interest in Dungeons and Dragons somehow superseded his status as a social outcast with sociopathic tendencies as the root of his problems. Soon after, his mother Patricia Pulling founded the organization BAD, short for Bothered About Dungeons and Dragons, which is
Wow.
a very mild name for the thing you blame your child's death on.
You see, Patricia had rolled a nat 1 while investigating the game, and didn't think that it had caused Irving to fall in with the wrong crowd or something. She thought the game had literally put a curse on him.
Possibly as a coping mechanism, Patty P became
Nice.
obsessed with the notion that Satanism was an ever-present concern, seducing the youth of America with gaming.
Patricia Pulling wasn't content with just Patricia pulling this shit in some local newspaper or her church group either. And through sheer determination as well as lack of an actual hobby like Dungeons and Dragons, she managed to weasel her way into positions where she could actively ruin other people's lives.
These included
How do these people, by the way, do it? Are some government institutions just so literally not interesting that no one even accidentally applies to them? And then there comes this absolute Karen of the Karens, and she's like, yeah, I can enforce stupid things here. Might as well apply. And then she wins because she's the only candidate in 15 years. Wow. How does this constantly keep happening?
becoming a consultant to law enforcement, who she kindly provided a profile for teenagers who could potentially be involved in Satanism, which was so vague and open-ended that it essentially
Vague and
describes every
open-ended.
teenager.
Mrs. Pulling even managed to fit 2 lies into her title at once, when she was brought on as an expert witness for several D&D related court cases. One such case was the trial of D&D playing murderer Darren Molitor, where she was brought in to explain to the jury how Dungeons and Dragons works, which would be like getting a Dungeons and Dragons player in to explain to the jury where to find the clitoris. It's here, by the way. It seems even Patricia knew she was full of shit, as her organisation would consistently fudge statistics, crop articles, and otherwise twist whatever words they could to fit their narrative. Even the newspaper article regarding her own son's death was gone over with the hedge clippers before making its way into Bad's official publications, removing the quote from one of his classmates that noted he had a lot of problems anyway that weren't associated with the game.
She even created these pamphlets to help misinform school staff and law enforcement, which admittedly go pretty hard. So
True.
I printed them on the finest t-shirtiesta fabric, featuring all your favorite characters.
Damn.
D's nuts, Joe, Mama, Bofa, D's nuts, and Sagondi's nuts for the third time. That's not all. We have these other things too.
Nice. It's
I mean,
kinda
it's just
lame.
merch. Wear it or burn it for warmth. I don't
Burn
really
it
care.
for fun.
This video is probably
True.
going to get limited ads because I'm talking about some
Uh-oh.
touchy subjects. So any
Hopefully
support would
not.
be greatly appreciated.
Hopefully that's not the case.
Okay, sport. Good chat.
Between Patricia's kooky crusade and the media storm drummed up by William Dare's hypothesis on the Egbert case, you might think that Dungeons and Dragons was being dealt a 1-2 punch that they would struggle to recover from. Of course,
You know what's the irony of that time? The newspapers, they didn't put that probably because they actually really believed in that crap. Nah, they probably put it in because there was literally nothing else to put in. Yeah, that's life before the internet. It was kinda dull and boring, and newspapers often literally wrote articles about random cats going around the street because, you know, what else are you gonna fill it with, honestly, at some point?
these scandals were essentially the largest free marketing campaign for what was until then a relatively niche hobby.
Right
that's
before the
true.
steam tunnel incident, the basic set might have sold 5,000 copies a month. By the end of 1979, it was trading over 30,000 copies a month, and only going
That's
up
a
from there.
lot.
Unsurprisingly, teenagers aren't ones to heed the entertainment recommendations of their church-going elders, who presumably wanted them to spend their days staring at a wall, and being told that there's this kick-awesome game full of demons and witchcraft and fantasy battles that you definitely shouldn't check out isn't quite
That's a
the
good
deterrent
way
they thought
to
it
do
would be.
things.
In the end, Patricia Pulling only ever helped advertise Dungeons and Dragons. Her organization BAD effectively disbanding in 1997 following her death, after she presumably received a curse while playing a game of Uno.
That
Anyone who
guy.
slung icos-
I haven't heard about this. I actually know about this story. It's kind of hilarious about how that woman accidentally is seriously responsible for D&D's success in massive ways because of her stupidity. But that guy, ooh.
Sahedron with the gang before has almost certainly encountered some version of that guy.
Oh, it's a
These
person.
people willfully ignore the collaborative aspect of Dungeons and Dragons and instead set out to create Dickweed Dan's amazing main character syndrome adventure, starring all these
Nice.
assholes who take forever to do their turns when I could be playing instead. Tabletop RPGs can be a unique litmus test for friendships, in the same way that moving in together or trying heroin can bring out undesirable qualities from otherwise reasonable people. Well, this is all well and good for a small friend group, but what about when your D&D playgroup is routinely broadcast to the entire world for millions to see?
Such was the case with Critical Role. For those who have been living under a
Yeah, I haven't seen this. I have heard about this. I was shocked when I heard that this is like the most popular and most revenue grossing Twitch stream ever, which kind of makes sense when we're talking about people who like D&D, because they're probably allergic to, well, anything outside of D&D, if we're being completely honest, and they have a lot of money probably laying around because there's only so many statuettes and paintings and whatnot that you can honestly fit into a house.
Stone Golem, Critical Role is a weekly game of Dungeons and Dragons, played by a number of professional voice actors and broadcast on Twitch and YouTube.
It's essentially the world's most famous game of Dungeons and Dragons, with their Dungeon Master, Matt Mercer, considered the gold standard that Dungeon Masters the world over are forever trying to suckle at the...
Is it actually that good? I have seen like one clip of it, and that was like a year ago, and it was so unbelievably theatrical. I honestly could not stand it. Is that like real? I have seen other D&Ds played out and whatnot. I have even watched some, but I don't know, this super over the top dramatic stuff. Are people actually a fan of that in mass, or am I just some kind of weird outcast when it comes to liking D&D stuff?
Storytelling Tito. These days, Critical Role is a titan of a show, with Matt and his 7 players topping the highest earning Twitch accounts over the course of their second
9
campaign.
million.
Of course, the reason I'm
Wow.
even talking about any of this is that they actually started with 8 players. During their first campaign, the crew were joined by fellow voice actor
Wait.
Orion.
Let's see again. Okay, 7. Is it gonna be the creepy guy? I can't actually tell. Are these not the same people? Okay, we got this guy, I think. Yo, it must be the creepy guy. Who's the creepy guy that got kicked? It's always the creepy guy.
Players. During their first campaign, the crew were joined by fellow voice actor Orion, famous for his role as Rico Rodriguez in Just Cause 4. Additional voices, voice, in the Lego Movie video game, and of course, Tiberius Stormwind, his character in Critical Role.
Tiberius was a
Scaly.
dragonborn sorcerer, a powerful spellcaster and bombastic character who won over the fanbase early on. However, with a bit of hindsight in our post-9/11 world, it's easy to see that Orion began to slip into the usual trappings of being their version of that guy. One of his most infuriating habits was metagaming, And here's where the distinction between Dungeons & Dragons being a game and a storytelling experience really become apparent. Metagaming is where you utilize real-life information to influence choices that your character should have no way of knowing. In almost any other game, coming prepared for a fight would earn you the praise of your teammates. But in D&D, googling the Yandere dev monster to discover that it's weak to mild criticism undermines the experience for everyone else and destroys the immersion that your dungeon master is trying so hard to build. Tiberius was apparently clairvoyant and would nip out for a smoke during fights against monsters that were resistant to his spells, or conveniently summon the one thing that would counter a creature, none of which Tiberius could know. This stemmed from Orion's belief that the DM is more of an adversary to be outwitted as opposed to a storytelling umpire. If metagaming is in the woodlands outside the castle of cheating, fudging dice rolls is sitting atop the cheating throne and subjugating the local townsfolk. And Orion was just as happy to lie about his dice rolls if it meant that Tiberius got to—
Wait, so no one checked their dice rolls? Isn't that like a fundamental thing that you should kind of do? How is this like complete? How do you do that without getting caught in a situation like this? There's literally cameras on you.
To be 4% more of a Mary Sue. There were several situations where it appears that he either re-rolled unfavourable dice or changed them with his hand after they had landed, requiring the other members to literally watch his rolls in later episodes to make sure he wasn't cheating.
I'm not gonna count that. Oh, I'll count that. 19.
Why didn't you count it?
Because it flew out of my hand. I didn't roll it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Ironically, these attempts to make his character cooler only made them more unlikable, and this sort of behaviour would get you kicked out of any D&D table in a Las Vegas casino. These bad habits were partially attributed to Orion being afflicted with main character syndrome, where a player believes they're playing a single-player RPG, where their character is the star and constantly deserving of the limelight, and
isn't this a problem that honestly happens a lot in these role-playing communities and whatnot? That everyone wants to be the Mary Sue of the party, you know? The bestest version of themselves ever. Like, you know, if they don't get their way, they make a huge thing. I'm pretty sure there's literal YouTube channels that exist. I have seen too. I'm pretty sure there's more, just saying. That literally make a living by posting horrible DM stories where some player wants to be the bestest ever and they literally recreate Rey Palpatine in a medieval setting, and well, the DM must give them now a lightsaber that does, you know, that has a plus 50 to all its rolls, because, you know, otherwise it would be horrible. Man, stuff like this is popular. Also, it kind of always surprised me how many D&D players have, for some reason, girlfriends. What's wrong with you people? Like, bodybuilders and gyms don't have girlfriends and have trouble. But you have how? What? They don't look desperate, so what's the deal here? Did you grow them in a vat or something?
all these other guys are just here to alley-up them some slam dunks. There were times when he would swoop in and try and steal the thunder from a cool moment that another player was experiencing.
How do you do that?
Barely manages to miss it by a segment.
I cast telekinesis to swoop it up. Just how to guide it.
Let me just see if I got it first.
And whatever this is.
As Vex is saying this, Tiberius is getting a half chub.
A what?
Hey.
Well, that's just weird.
You can't see it because it's inside.
Yes, because you said it out loud. So.
Anyway.
As well as an infamous incident where he blew up at a fan who made a
Consider yourself uncrittered? What the hell is that?
T-shirt based on his character, requiring other cast members to step in and apologize.
Episode 27, Orion's final episode, is notably the most uncomfortable in the series, with the usually chipper cast deflated and smelly.
Look at how visibly sad they are. That's so good. Look at her. She doesn't want to exist anymore. This guy's rethinking. This guy's looking at his past life and thinking how happy he was when he was 7. This guy wants a beer. This woman's literally contemplating things I can't say. This man's enjoying it though for some reason. This man, This man wants to see how it ends.
Deflated and smelly. The following episode, Orion is conspicuously absent, with Matt filling in as his character Tiberius, who has conveniently decided to go off on his own for a few episodes.
Several episodes later,
nice.
Tiberius, still played by Matt, shows up one last time to announce that he's leaving for good.
I have to go now. My planet needs me.
Good, I guess.
Following this in-game send-off, as well as official confirmation that Orion would no longer be joining, the Crit Role fandom, or Critters, became overrun with rampant speculation. Given the vagueness of the official statement, fans began trawling through previous episodes, social media accounts, and forum posts from the crew.
Seems
to try
about
and
right.
pinpoint exactly what could have caused the split.
In 2017, over a year after leaving the show, Orion made a now deleted Instagram post explaining, in his own words, why he left. According to him, it came down to focusing on his mental and physical health, as he was battling both cancer and depression during his time on Critical Role.
Okay.
Of course, his departure happened immediately following.
Well, that does kind of explain why this guy wants to be in the spotlight also, if that's true. I don't know, seems like a guy could lie, honestly.
The infamous 27th episode, and his spat with the fan on Twitter, so it's possible that his health wasn't the only reason for his retirement.
Following his departure, Orion retained the rights to the character of Tiberius and went on to make the radio show he had always wanted to, where Tiberius is the main character.
Wait, maintain the rights to his D&D character? What? Wow. Okay, well, I guess when you're making 9 mil in 2 years playing make-believe, yeah, there's probably some big money involved, and everything's probably copyrighted.
And gets loads of chicks and is super cool and has all the powers of Sonic, but is more powerful than Sonic, but they're also best friends. And
ironically, because of his IP retention, Tiberius has effectively been scrubbed from most retellings of Campaign 1, including the upcoming animated series.
Wait, is this the series? I tried to watch it not too long ago, like, I think like a couple of months ago, like, not even 6 months ago, not even half a year ago I tried to watch it. I got to episode 3 and I was literally at the edge of my limit. Nah, man, this is cringe. You people are cringe. Dude, bruh, oh, no shot.
Orion has since had a somewhat tumultuous
no
couple of years,
way.
supposedly misusing funds from a Kickstarter campaign he launched for his Tiberius radio show. His backers never receiving any of the rewards they paid for. There are also allegations surrounding him spending money from multiple charity streams on himself, as well as some very disturbing messages shared by ex-partners, which paint him out to be an abusive boyfriend. These,
it's
many
all
scandals of
it all kind of falls in place, you know. It's kind of to be expected at this point, I feel.
Orion have resulted in discussions surrounding him outside of his appearance on the show, being blacklisted from some of the major Crit Role fan groups, such as Facebook and Reddit. To this day, the cast of Critical Role have commented next to nothing on the situation, save for confirming that Orion won't be returning to the show, and some super sleuths noticing Matt liking a few tweets condemning Orion's recent actions. Critical Role, meanwhile, continued on their gradual rise to fame, the crew now raking in massive viewership on both Twitch and YouTube.
Are they still around, by the way?
YouTube, with the aforementioned animated series premiering early next year, and their third campaign currently underway. In the end, it appears that Orion's role really wasn't that critical after all.
Nice.
After more mini scandals, you can
Beef Boys. But this was mini kudos. Yeah, pretty good. Unbelievable. The last part, definitely. Dude, that anime... Is it even an anime? That anime was based on that? No wonder I didn't watch it. Yeah, it was really tough to watch past the third episode. It's like... It just was a little bit, you know, off. It felt... It felt exactly like what I don't like in D&D. Over dramatic. All of it felt over dramatic. So at least now I know that Critical Role is definitely not for me. But I do understand how people probably like it a lot. Those who like overly dramatic things and, you know, vivid stuff. I want a little bit, more down to earth. Still have a description and whatnot, but other than that, I'm not a fan of the over pompous. Well, in any case, good video. Good video. Anyway, like and subscribe. Have a good day. I'm out. Bye-bye.